And let's go in reverse order. Matt, if you don't mind going first again, and maybe sharing some of the challenges that you faced in 2020 and what are some goals that Lafayette Winona has for 2021?
Sure. I think, like everyone else, the biggest issue was the transition due to the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, we had our meetings in a church, and it was we had social hours or a lot of social events, and it's been an adjustment to not have it quite that way anymore. And I think we've adapted pretty well with we've modernized our website a little bit, made it easier to distribute email. We post more on social media, and our Facebook page for our Civic League has grown quite a bit. So I think we're doing a lot better job at getting information to people who need it and helping them make decisions. So I'm glad to be a part of it. We have a very helpful Civic League. A lot of people are willing to chip in here and there to get things done. So I'm really appreciative for everyone who lives in my neighborhood.
Do you have any particular goals for 2021?
Yeah, so we have a pump station project that's going on. So a lot of that's going to be making sure that we distribute the information for that and make sure that everyone who's impacted really has a good idea of what is going to happen and can plan for it. And I'm hoping that by the end of it, we'll be able to somewhat transition to a hybrid virtual in-person Civic League, but that really depends on, the vaccine distribution, that kind of thing. But the big goal is to try to add some transparency and allow our meetings be broadcast to a wider audience, either through maybe Facebook Live or just a or a recorded, post video on Facebook after the meeting's over.
Well, I'm hoping when you open up, you do another chili cook-off again. That was a wonderful social event that you had, and you're also a very good cook. You made some chili, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I didn't place, but it's a thought that counts, right? There were a lot of good competitors, so there were a lot of good chilies. I'm glad we did that.
Yes, that was a fun make an announcement for something, and
Hmm.
I don't remember what the announcement was, but I remember the chili.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Peoples-Perry, do you mind going next?
Oh, okay. I had to remember to unmute myself when you called me. I could just start talking without unmuting. One of the things that I was writing down is, again, just like you, Matt, trying to transition from doing this hybrid method is some personal and some internet, and trying to keep up with everything through Zoom and everybody coming on Zoom. I mean, we have our Civic League meetings on Zoom continuously, all three of them, and then trying to keep up with all three. That's a job in itself, the transition that's going on. We talk about our educational leadership change, being the educational leader, community civic league, community leader. I worry a lot about the educational changes that's taking place on the South Side. Most of you know on the South Side, we have three schools, St. Helena, which is K5. We have the ECC, which is pre-K, 3, 4, and we have the STEM Academy, which is K8. And trying to keep up with the leadership changes that have taken place on the South Side and what is going on within the schools has really been a challenge for all of us on the South Side. All of the civic leagues are really concerned in regards to the education. And because the schools are not accredited, and that makes a big difference on the South Side of Norfolk. And we're constantly trying to figure out what's going on and why we have such a continuous change of teachers and the leadership, which is not good for children, but that's another story in itself. We also talk about the food scarcity. We know we are a food desert on the south side of Norfolk, and because the food line, Farm Fresh, closed about 3 years ago, if not longer, almost 5 years, 5 years ago, and they have not been a grocery store within 5 to 10 miles of the south side. And trying to fight that has been an uphill battle. It's been constant trying to get that taken care of. And people do come over to the South Side to pass out foods and or pamphlets about what they would want to do to help, but we try to keep up with who's doing what, where, when, why, where are you, who's here, who's there, you know, trying to bring it all together so that we can all help as many people as we can. And I'm sure you've heard about the Impact Southside piece that is taking place right at the foot of Berkeley Bridge, just before you enter into Berkeley and Portsmouth. Well, a lot of people from Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Portsmouth come over to the Impact South Side to get foods and things. And that's not impacting the South Side, that's impacting all of Norfolk. And that has become a problem. We just don't say it's just the South Side because it doesn't go all the way into Campostella Heights. So that's a real problem too. Again, the leadership, I said the store and all of that, but what we're doing to try to solve those problems, and then that's our goal, is to get a grocery store on the South Side. We're working hard to get that done. And you probably heard that the city has appropriated the monies for a grocery store. Well, that's 5 to 10, maybe at least 5 years down the road. It's not happening now. People thought that's solving their problem. No, you got to get the person in there. You got to get the people in there. You got to get the food in there. And then it's going to take at least 5 to 10 years before it really opens. It's not an overnight thing going on there. And we're going to plan on keep a journal, a newsletter going on throughout the entire South Side so that everybody will know what's going on. And we also have the Boys and Girls Club, but that's our only recreation that's going on the South Side of Norfolk. And that's a personal, independent agency. Norfolk Parks and Recreation closed our recreation centers. They closed them. They closed the resource centers. And so our children didn't have anywhere to go. So now it's keeping our kids involved, even though it's limited to the number of spaces, but when you close it, you don't have any space. Our children have nowhere to go when they finish school. So it's trying to get those things back open again. We're also working on trying to get the library done. We have a library being built, but they closed the Horace Downing Library, which was the other library we had on the South Side. So while we're waiting for one to be built, the other one closed down. So that's becoming a problem. We're fighting on the South Side for that, on that time. And then the vaccine. Most of the vaccines are being given on the Norfolk side, the main side of Norfolk. We haven't had a place where the vaccines are being given on the South Side, except for the STEM Academy. And that was people coming from Norfolk over to the STEM Academy. They only had about 20 to 25 shots for the people on the South Side. The rest of it went to people from throughout Norfolk, and that became a real headache. So our goals are to try to improve all those problems that we are having on the South Side, and that's where we are at this point. We're working hard. The people are doing real well, working together. We try to keep each other informed as to what's going on. Like I said, we're doing a newsletter for the entire South Side. And we're trying to be as transparent throughout all of the civic leagues as we possibly can. It's about where we are.
Wonderful. Could you maybe say just a minute about the We Care project? And also, was there a program where you did home repair? I remember, I think Zamari or Jamie sending me a picture of some gentlemen helping with home repair seniors.
Yes.
I remember them wearing masks.
Right. There we have a couple of contractors who are helping with home repairs over on the South Side. They are people that have come into the neighborhood from, have built places within the South Side to help some of the seniors and people to repair their homes. So they are doing that. The We Care project started in March 4th of last year. And it started because of the COVID-19. We started out with like serving 50 people. We came together as a community. All 3 civic leagues tried to send people to come together to put food together to send out to the seniors, mainly the seniors who couldn't get to stores. So we started that out in March, and we started out with 50 bags of grocery, mainly to the Psych Center. And if you know, a Psych Center is a complex with 85 seniors, all seniors, live in Psych Center. We had 20-some seniors at the banks of Berkeley, and the rest of them are homebound within the community. So we had to try to reach those seniors because there was no store. So that's why we started the We Care. And so far, We Care has taken on a life of its own, thanks to the help of civic leagues, community people, people from over Norfolk, like Bonita and her church, and then different churches have contributed to us. The adoption of the Pamunkey tribe. We've had churches all over who have donated things. And then today, a lady walked in the center and said, I have a donation for you, and I see what you're doing. Personal donation. She gave me $2,500. I thought I was going to faint. I said, wait a minute, where did that come from? And she said, I wanted to help you. You guys see what you're doing and you're helping others. And right now we're serving 150 seniors bag groceries every week. At one point we were doing 900 meals. That was due to Pharrell Williams and the food bank and Yendidi restaurants and a couple other restaurants were giving meals so that we could serve our seniors every week. So we had about 900 meals going out every week for about 7 months in the year. And now we're doing 150 bags every week to seniors. We do 20 to Psych Center, so that 20, they're 85. So every week, each on the floor, there are 20 people that gets a bag of groceries. So, and then it rotates around again, it comes back. So in a month's time, we have given a bag of groceries to everybody in that senior complex. Plus, we have people that take food to the homes of the seniors who are homebound. And we ask the civic leagues to help us with locating those persons. So we've been doing that. So we're constantly going out and serving our seniors as well as our homeless. And if you've been over South Side, you notice there are a lot of homeless people standing at the end of the bridges and walking around the South Side. So we sort of they know to come to us, so we sort of give them food that they can eat without having to heat it, without having to open it up and having to take it to somebody, or to, like we eat it or refrigerate it. We try to make sure they get a bag of groceries that they can eat right then and there. And I still try to give them meals. Every now and then, I'll go out and buy maybe 100 or 150 meals so that I can hand deliver that to them on Tuesday morning. So it's really a rewarding experience just doing that. I really thoroughly enjoyed having been an educator and administrator for those 45, 55 years. It's good to be doing this to help the seniors and to help the homeless. It warms your heart to just do that on a monthly, weekly basis. And we have not missed 1 week since March 4th. Not 1 week. We even went through the Thanksgiving holidays, the Christmas holidays. We were there every week because people have to eat every day. So we figured we need to do it. And I do it with seven dedicated volunteers. 7 that have been coming every week. No rain, snow, sleet, hail. They've been there every week to help do that. And I'm very appreciative of the people that we have working together. It's a grassroots, neighbors helping neighbors organization. That's basically it.
Thank you. That is so encouraging. I appreciate it. Next, Anne, if you don't mind going next.
All right. Well, so East Ocean View is a pretty big civic league. I run from First View all the way through Bay Point, and then I run from the Chesapeake Bay to Pretty Lake Inlet. And so it covers a pretty good territory. And we were getting about 70 people every month at our Civic League meetings at the rec center until the pandemic hit. And so, you know, in trying to position, we switched to Zoom meetings. And we have been doing Zoom meetings since March. And I would say the highest participation I'm probably getting is 45. It's usually around 30. It just depends. But, trying to keep people engaged. We have a newsletter that we do quarterly, and it's very well received, and it gets distributed out in the community. It's also on our website. And I have somebody that does Facebook. And so that just seems to, kind of keep people informed, engaged, and whatever. But that truly, we had a huge fall off in membership in 2020 because people typically would pay their dues and join at a meeting. And so when you weren't having a physical meeting, they didn't pay their dues. They might dial into the Zoom meetings because we would send it to the list, but it wasn't getting any funding. So that became a challenge. And so our goals moving forward for 2021 has been that we are going to do a big membership drive, and that's working well. We're going to get 150 paying members. We focused on our advertising for our newsletter because the newsletter advertising kind of runs the engine for my Civic League and the charities that we are able to support. Some of the other things that we have taken on this year, we decided that it was kind of unfriendly for these bus stops in our community not to have any benches. And so we made it a priority to put benches and a trash can at the bus stops as funding allowed. And we did a GoFundMe page and people donated to it, and we would pick up benches at yard sales and recondition them. I had some Coast Guard guys rebuilding them, and we would paint them up cute, and we were placing these, and they look good. So we did the bus stop. We have a community garden in East Ocean View, and this year we're going to rebuild all the planters. They were all wooden raised planters and they had rotted. They were kind of dangerous. And then I had 2 cars drive through the fence of the community garden. So we had to replace the fencing, and we are going to rebuild the planters in paving bricks. And so they'll be more permanent, and that'll be a nice thing. And people love, we have a little free library in the garden, and we have a couple of benches, and it's a nice place to gather for when we are able to gather for community events. We typically do a 4th of July, and we do an April planting, and we do a fall festival, and then we do a Christmas in the garden normal circumstances. So then we also have, I don't know if you all know Bay Oaks Park, but Bay Oaks Park is a beautiful park that has really finally come along, and we're going to get some bathrooms, permanent bathrooms this year. And we also have a piece of art that is going to be installed in Bay Oaks Park. And so that's a fun thing. We have a very, very active food bank in East Ocean View through the Storehouse Ministry. And then we also have, we were feeding the children in East Ocean View after school because we found that they would show up at the rec center just hungry. We had a big feeding program for a few years where they would have a very healthy snack when they got to the rec center after school. And of course, then the rec centers closed down. And then the kids weren't getting their lunches. And a lot of our children their parents weren't going to pay a $5 bus ticket to go get a free lunch from their distribution center. So we had Miss Dana, who was running the rec center, and she and another couple of volunteers would go around and pick up the free food lunches for the kids and distribute them to their homes because she knows where her kids are. And Miss Dana was keeping tabs on them, and then we also subsidized her doing food baskets for specific families over the holidays, things like that. So that's just one of our outreach. But I made a decision in December that my board was going to all have assignments this year in 2021. And so each board member had to take a job, a specific job. So I've got one fellow, he's my grant writer. I have one guy that's in charge of the membership drive. I have one guy that was in charge of advertising and chasing advertising and getting all their ads in and making sure all that was straight. I have a planning liaison. So if I had a CUP request or anything to do with a new apartment project or whatever, his job was to gather all the information from the person that was doing the project, either the homeowner for the CUPs or the developer, and communicate with planning, and then he would coordinate the presentation to our Civic League each month for that, and we would have to typically do a vote, and then I have to do a letter to the planning department. So I have a wonderful lady that's here from Sweden. Her husband's in NATO, but she was the chief of police in Stockholm. And so I have put her in charge of the community policing outreach, and she and my community resource officer have partnered up, and she's going to share some messaging on that. And then I have the Facebook and web page guy, thank God. And then we have the community garden, and then we also distribute newcomer packets. So every quarter in our newsletter, we recognize people that have decided to move to East Ocean View, and we deliver personally a newcomer packet welcoming them to the community, giving them information about the city of Norfolk, about any programs that we can get materials on, and then restaurants. We have a restaurant list and things like that, and we include our newsletter. We've got a sticker for your car that says East Ocean View, and I have a team that stuffs these packets, and then we get them delivered. So that's what we're doing.
That is great. Thanks, Ann. I hope you find all that encouraging. If I ask a follow-up question on that, so a few years ago, if I remember correctly, you mentioned, you just said that the newsletter advertising is an engine that drives your, and if I remember correctly from a few years ago, that the majority of the money that you make off of that goes to the charities that you support. Goes to the, okay.
Yeah, we have 3 charities that we support. It's Coach Dwight, who does sports programs with the youth. We have the rec center, Miss Dana and the kids. And then our third charity is the Storehouse Ministry. So we set aside funds for each of those. In addition, we also do a reading program in the summer. Now, this summer, of course not, but next summer I hope will be all right. Where we have volunteers come and we buy the books. It's by age that you buy them, and we buy usually 3 books per age group. So it's either we're going to buy 10 books or whatever of some book, and then we have a volunteer read with those children the books, and they get through about 3 or 4 books over the course of a summer, and then all the excess books, we do a book fair at the end, so they all can go home with some books. So it's great.
That's wonderful. Another question for you: how long is the OP Civic League or East Ocean View Civic League been in existence?
That's a very good question. I believe that it was actually a bigger Civic League initially, and it's split into Cottage Line and one other, because a fellow by the name of Ted Drake was giving me this history. So I think we're mid-80s is what I kind of heard. I have been active in our Civic League since 1996 as a member, and then for the last 10 years as part of the board.
All right, very good. I asked that and I mentioned it because several of the civic leagues that, for instance, the Southside Civic Leagues and East Ocean View have the advantage of years of experience and, building capacity. Our last panelist this evening is from Easton Forest, Amani Maxalls. And so she's in a situation that many other neighborhoods find themselves in where they're starting from scratch or there used to be a civic league. And so there isn't that capacity that other neighborhoods have. And so I asked Amani to maybe share where she's at, what they've done, and some things that they're planning to do. Amani?
Thank you, Jim. Yes, Eastern Forest does not have a civic league, so I've been partnering with Jim, as you know, everybody already knows Jim's awesome, but I just had to let him know again. Thank you so much for all your support. I really appreciate it. But Jim and then Keep Norfolk Beautiful as well. I've been working with them the past, since last year, I believe. We did a beautification event, and that was during Halloween. And so basically, we came out and they had candy for the kids. We had a DJ, pizza, popcorn. It was a really lovely event, and that got people out of their house. It's a bit difficult because in Eastern Forest, it's mostly a lot of elderly individuals who live in the area, and it's really difficult to get people out of their house and get engaged. So that drew children, adults, everybody was out there having a good time, and I'm hoping that we have another event scheduled coming up in March, on March 20th, that we're working on, and it's called Love Your City, Love Your Neighborhood. So I'm hoping that we can get more individuals out and I can get their contact information from that, because the previous event that we did in October, it was really difficult to get in touch with people because they put their emails down, but of course nobody responds to email in 2021. So it's been difficult in that regard, getting in contact with people and then getting reliable people who are willing to dedicate some of their time, because as we all know, being a part of a civic league is like a labor of love. So you really have to have time to be able to dedicate to organizing events and to getting the community activated. But thankfully, I've been able to work with Jim and the city and Keep Norfolk Beautiful and flyers and just give people educational materials, connect them with different resources in the neighborhood they can access. And I really want to work on not only just being able to start a civic league and identify those specific individuals who will be willing to step up and help form the civic league, but also apply for like block by block grants and just help the neighborhood be a lot less, I guess like littering, because littering is a big issue in the area. So just helping educate people on littering. Starting up a web page. I know a lot of you said that you have a web page that you have for your civic league. That would be really helpful. And for the elderly people, having a newsletter, because I know sometimes accessing that technology is difficult for them. They don't understand how to log into Zoom or how to, get on Facebook Live. And I don't know how to do all those things either. So just getting into where we can have more accessibility for everyone and connecting people to resources. Those are some things I definitely want to be able to work on top of being able to have a civic founded.
Well, thanks, Amani. We are, in our office in neighborhood engagement, we are just so very thankful for the Amanis in the world. When we come into contact with somebody like her, who, wants to do something and says, hey, how can we, initially, quite frequently it starts with a problem. In that case, it was codes issues and, litter all over the neighborhood. But out of that come people who are willing to think outward and step forward. And so, the feeling is mutual toward Amani, that we're just very thankful for people like that. And hopefully this evening you can connect with other people. Barb James, I think, is about, 2 years ahead of you in terms of restarting a civic league, something like that. And so
about a year, actually. We
oh,
just
wow.
incorporated last year.
Okay. So those are, Barb's doing great. So those are good connections. We want to move into the third round and just open it up for questions. The first question that was already submitted, and I'll give you a chance if down at the bottom of your screen, if you're on a laptop, there should be a little smiley emoji that has, if you hovered over it, it says reactions. You can raise your hand that way. Or if that may be probably to your right, if you hover over your name, you should be able to raise your hand on the participant panel as well if you'd like to ask a question. While you're looking for the hand raise function, one of the questions that Matt raised that I thought was really good in our preparation for the panel, well, how do you deal with social media and some of the uncivil behavior and comments on social media that overflow into kind of civic discussion in the neighborhood? I thought that was a very pertinent question that we've heard before, even from council members. So I thought I'd ask our four panelists if you have any kind of thoughts on, handling social media, both the good and the bad. Do any of our panelists have any thoughts?
I mean, I was the one who asked the question, but I can explain the content or the context of it somewhat.
Perfect.
We've had, pretty significant issues. Ours is a mostly residential civic league, but we have some undeveloped lots. And there was a lot of discussion about a conditional use permit for a multifamily. And there were, people who were opposed and people who were for it, but a lot of times the conversation took turns into, personal attacks and that kind of thing. And that's just one instance. It happens on occasion with other ones also, but that one kind of stood out a little more. I mean, people seem to blow up small things into a much larger issue. Speeding and accidents on roads, people seem to take things personally more often.
You know, this is Sarah. One of the things we have done on our Zoom meetings is setting some norms when before you begin your Zoom meetings. In your meetings, as to, like you did, Jim, raise your hand or acknowledge, go down to the chats. If you want to talk personally, you can go to chat, which has been a good learning lesson for using Zoom. Go down to the chat and send a chat message to a person on chat. And there always have to be a parliamentarian or someone on your Zoom meeting who will keep it flowing like it should be. I find that when you have that person who can keep check on what's going on, and when someone is talking or they're doing something outside and the mute button is not unmuted, that one person can always say, can someone unmute or mute your button, or can we get back to our discussion? Or, and whoever's doing the controlling, like Jim, can say, right now, let me mute you because we need to have a private conversation on that. I think that those rules should still apply, even whether you're in person meeting or on a Zoom meeting. Yeah, I see your discussion agreement.
Incidentally, while you mentioned that, just for the Q&A session, we do have a few common things that are pretty common at this point in life, but remain muted. Everybody's pretty much got that down. Be respectful, be concise, be focused on topics that are, germane to this discussion. And also one of our big things is that everyone who wants to gets a chance to speak. So that's, we usually try to provide those things. This is a good group this evening, so I don't think that's an issue. But, so that's one way of handling it in meetings. Are there other ideas on handling, social media that is outside of meetings? Does anybody else have this problem? Oh, well, that's good.
I was just going to say that we used to have late 90s, very low attendance at meetings, and the complaint was that the meetings used to become kind of heated, and it was people just snapping at each other or droning on or whatever. And the way we fixed that and how attendance grew from 10 a meeting to upwards of 70. I mean, Nikki's been there. She's seen how many we get. But it is a very strict agenda. that's published, and with time slots. So somebody who's speaking gets allotted their time slot. And we also have room for, people to discuss, and we have, we'll take a vote or whatever, and have to be really strict about tabling it if it needs to be tabled. Bring it back next month or whatever, but we're going to move on.
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge that we face frequently too, where people bring up a topic that wasn't necessarily on the agenda, and it kind of takes a detour. And most of the time, it's easy to get people back on topic, but occasionally we do have the same issue, and it drags out your meeting. Um, the time is valuable. And last thing we want is people who only allotted an hour and a half for meeting to be spending upwards of 2 or so hours at a meeting. So yeah, we've had the same problem, and we've managed it quite a bit better.
Thanks, both of you. Any other thoughts on that particular question? I might also add that we just completed our last webinar, or second to last webinar, was from Carlos Clanton, who did a workshop on parliamentary procedure that is available online on our YouTube channel. He also created a parliamentary procedure guide just for civic leagues. He's a registered parliamentarian and instructor. That's available on our NBN Academy website, library at norfolk.gov/NBN library. He made that just for Norfolk Civic League, so that's another resource that's out there for you to help with that. So let's take some questions from our audience, virtual audience. I see Ms. Turner. Do you have your hand up?
Good evening. I'm with Middletown Arch Civic League, and we had a civic league ever since the community was built. My problem is now we're getting older. Matter of fact, I just retired last year, and everybody's dropping off. I am able to get some of the seniors and some of the old members to log onto the Zoom. But what can I do to get the new generation to help me keep the Civic League going? I mean, anybody have any thoughts on what I can do to engage them? We already do a newsletter and Facebook, and we think about trying to get a website. But it's a different niche to get the young adults who basically go to Norfolk State, across the street from where we at, to be a part of our civic league to build it back up. That's the question I have. What are you are doing to engage the younger generation?
Thanks, Ms. Turner. That is a great question. That is a question that we hear pretty frequently across the city, almost on a weekly basis. So I'll open it up to our panelists, and anybody else has any input.
This is Ann, and I had that problem, and we got a lot of new members because we would plan a community event that we called the community cleanup every spring. And then we had a picnic afterwards. And we actually we went around and had flyers that we delivered, hand delivered. It was a lot for a couple of us to do, but we did it. And we got a lot of people to turn out. One year I had over 100 people volunteer, and we kept it to a 4-hour time frame. We filled 2 dumpsters worth of trash. And every year since that we've done it, it's been less and less trash, number one. But number two, they would walk around, you'd be assigned to a small group, and they got to meet each other. And I think that really fostered a lot. That's how I kind of took it on.
Okay, thank you so much. That's the idea that we can take on. Thank you.
One of the things I'm thinking in this day and time, that's a good idea, and we used to do those kinds of things on the South Side. But right now, Wanda, while you're in this world of internet and Zooming, it's hard to get other people to come in, uh, become involved in what you're doing, and to get them involved. One way you could do it is to start inviting a person from the younger generation to come to on your Zoom meetings to present their skills or to present their hobby or to talk to your Civic League members, to let them become involved in different things, part of that Zoom meeting. Like, I would like for you all to come on, and he or she is going to invite their friends to listen to what they got to say. You know, they like to show off. They like to be known. They like to be seen. So they're going to invite, if you say, can you do this presentation on my Zoom meeting on March 3rd? Some of their friends are going to come. And on that meeting, do something interesting for your other people. You got to get them involved. Young people nowadays, they're internet savvy. They love being on the computer. I mean, right now, being that they're on the computer so much with school, but they love being on the computer and they love talking to others. So let's get them coming in on your Zoom meetings, one or two, to make a presentation and to get other people involved in that.
Another great idea.
Yes, it is. That's a great idea. You're right. They do like to take pictures of themselves and tell everybody what they're doing, and so yeah, that's a good idea. I think getting them involved with that is great. Thank you. Both ideas was really great. Thank you.
And Amani, I see your hand up, which is good because I was going to pick on you anyway to see if you had any thoughts. As I don't want to get myself in trouble with anybody else, but I think you're one of the younger people here.
Yeah.
But so if you had any thoughts on what got you involved and what other people your age.
I've always been passionate about social justice work and just taking care of marginalized groups, just making sure that their needs are met. So I would say try to identify what the needs of the younger communities are. So you said they're from NSU. So they're probably looking for maybe employment opportunities or internships. Maybe you have people in your civic league who they can network with. So it's just all about how you market it to them. So like you want to say, oh, we have, these opportunities for you to get involved, get volunteer service, or oh, we have somebody who we can connect you with who's in STEM or whatever field maybe you pursuing. Just having a mentor. A lot of young people, they want to have mentorship. So kind of putting a spin on it in a way that would help them be more engaged, and also activating them, participate or putting on activities that they would like. I don't know about like picture taking activity, but I know like music. Maybe you guys can have a cleanup and have like a DJ, just like a cookout event, just something where people can get engaged and be social.
Thanks, that's great. Can I ask you another question, Amani? Based on some of the interns we've had and some of the younger staff, millennial staff that we've had, one of the things that one of our coworkers, Sheree, said is that they are more likely to get involved if there's something to do. Whereas older generations, they used to get their information from meetings, going to meetings. The younger generation gets most of their information from just, their phone. So having something to do or relationships to meet, do you find that generally true, or is that just me being older and making broad generalizations?
No, I would agree with that.
Okay, well, thanks. And then I saw another good suggestion. Mr. Surratt said that you could try to send out questionnaires or doing surveys asking for people's input, which I think is another good idea. All right, I think we've gotten some good answers to that question. Are there other questions out there? Any other questions at all? Looking for hands up.
I could add on a little to the participation question, because our neighborhood, someone has the same challenge, and we've had some events in the past that have done well, our neighborhood is mostly retirees, and then we have a lot of uh, people who are settling down and having children. So it's a pretty decent age gap. But I think the challenge with people my age, I have two kids, is just the time. A lot of times it is difficult to make time to do that kind of thing, carving out hours. But like Amani said, the events help out. We've had during the pandemic, we had a like a basically a zoo where people put their stuffed animals in their front yard, and you can go by with your kids and like you were on a safari, and walk down the streets with your kids and take pictures of the animals, and that had good participation. And the same with neighborhood cleanups and that kind of thing. I think you really need to push for actual, an event tied to it, not just a informational bit.
Thanks, Matt. Um, Another great input. Um, Any other questions? I think I see Mr. Brenner. Did you want to make a quick comment I saw, I think in the chat room, did you have a quick comment that you wanted to make?
Yes, Jim. I definitely love the energy of Amani and also some of the input of Miss Sarah Peoples. Um, Getting the youth engaged that are actually moving, especially in the neighborhoods, especially the youth that are really needing that extra help in the community. Because I can tell you this, I moved over in the Terrellton area at 32. I'm 49 now. And I'll be honest with you, the input that I've gotten from a lot of citizens, just in general of the Civic League, uh, is a policing unit, meaning folks that, and it's no disrespect to anybody in a Civic League, but the input I've got from younger folks when I first moved in was, as somebody to complain about your grass, as somebody to let the city know that your car is parked a little bit over your driveway, or whatever it may be. And it could be different in other communities. But the bottom line is, I think maybe in this day and time, obviously with the pandemic, and obviously with a younger group, we need to reinvent the wheel to go with the younger generation, um, to get this going, so that we don't just have a building there with old panel walls in there from the 70s or 60s, and not get the younger, uh, the younger adults or groups basically involved, because they're not going to get involved. It's just going to be the same thing. So I think that also engaging with the youth to help out, like with Norfolk State, Old Dominion, Tidewater Community College. If they're living in those neighborhoods, engage them into helping these youths with these tablets in our underserved communities. Other ways that we can help each other. And I think that the problem is we are separated as a city, and we need to start working a little bit together to help each other as one. You know, not being on the west side, the east side. I think that we all need to start working a little bit more in unity, and to help our whole city out as one, instead of being this Civic League in this area, this one in there. Everybody should be there as one, just like you're doing tonight. You're trying to feel what works well in one area, and folks can get feedback from that. But I think we all as human beings need to work a little bit together, is not just Civic Leagues are boxed in our neighborhood, but to work together a little bit better as human beings, because we're in a rough world right now with a lot of younger kids that are struggling with mental illness, the mental health aspect, the single parent in the house or the parent not in the house, food insecurities, uh, the equal opportunities of economic development, and other things else that we need to work together to help each other. So I just feel that saying Civic League or doing this and that, sometimes I think we need to reinvent some things. And I think Amani hit that right on the nail. And I just want to commend her and her energy and what she is doing right now, to be out there engaged as a young woman, to coming out of college and doing everything that she's doing. And I think that she is leading the way over there in the community she's living in, and we need to get more younger folks like her out there in the community, and we need to be more engaged as a city with all of our civic leagues together as one. So I just wanted to say that. So, because
Thanks, Mr. Brenner.
I'm everywhere in the city, so I love everybody. I'm not going to restrict myself to Tarleton. And if anybody knows me, I'm everywhere. So I'm not just going to restrict myself to my neighborhood. So that's my input. So I
Well, we
appreciate
appreciate it. One of the things that we hope that tonight does, it's definitely more difficult virtually than if we were in a room together where you could go off to the side and you could ask somebody a question, or you could, hold a side conversation. We do hope that you are able to make some connections this evening, and, help with each other. Again, we get a wonderful bird's eye view of the city and all the things that are going on, and we feel so encouraged. I saw Matt had some additional comments in there. Do you want to maybe mention that instead of me reading it, Matt?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, in the text I mentioned that prior to COVID, we had started to work through the process of creating some volunteer forms to allow the younger neighborhood residents um, a way to help connect with the older ones in need of, yard work or painting. That way they can get some volunteer hours, towards their college, and they can also connect with residents that, one, need the help, and two, are just their neighbors. Try to foster a little bit of a neighborhood connection between people who live, sometimes houses down from each other.
Thanks, Matt. Are there any more questions? Going once?
I did have one to add to Matt's, if that's all right.
Sure, very quickly.
Yeah, I like that idea where he's saying that having some folks help out. And I know somebody else had mentioned that as well. I believe it was Sarah with the assistance with some things with the houses, as far as doing repairs. And I think a lot right now, obviously with code violations, has been kind of. I know the city council has had some things with that as well, where they said the city code violations with different things has softened up a little bit, and they've gotten response from citizens. But I think if we got some folks out here that are elderly, for one, cannot get out and mow the grass, somebody that's been affected by COVID, some folks that have been affected by some major health concerns, some veterans, maybe somebody out there that cannot do those repairs to the house, or do the yards to maybe get them up to par. Obviously, have them sign a waiver, do something so they're not suing the city or suing the Civic League or whatever. But get a group of us, a group of folks together as volunteers to beautify those yards. And I know code violations there for a reason, but also so that we can try to help the neighbors out and help folks in the city as a whole with beautifying those yards, and also helping them out through a bad time where they may not be able to, or have the resources to pay somebody to clean the yard or to mow the grass, whatever, when it starts getting a little bit warmer outside. So I just wanted to put that out there. If we could maybe do that within the civic leagues to try to help out, maybe identify some seniors, veterans, um, folks affected by COVID or whatever it may be.
Thanks again, Mr. Brenner. Sherry, did you have your hand up?
Yes. So I don't know so much of a question, but maybe a plea for some help. I am struggling trying to keep the Civic League alive, even with my board members. We have door hangers, but to try to get people out there to want the neighborhood, I mean, I would love to bring in some people just to help me do things like that, just to put door hangers out. Is the city able to offer any assistance, or if y'all have any suggestions for that? How can I just get some help?
Any suggestions out there?
No.
It's hard to answer that question to get help. For what you're talking about, Sherry, to put things out into your community. I know I'm one, and I said I would if I were younger, get out there to help you. This 76-year-old woman don't want to get back out there walking the streets anymore. You know what I mean? But I understand. But anyway, one of the things I have done with getting my food distributed throughout the seniors throughout the neighborhood, I called the police department. They have a community relation department. I called them and I asked them if they would help me to deliver food to some of the seniors in the neighborhood. And lo and behold, they did. They brought 2 trucks and 4 policemen to come over, and they said, where do you want me to take them? And I gave them the area I wanted them to go to, and even the house of some of the seniors' homes to take the bags of groceries to them. And I put it to them this way: it'll help you all have a better relationship with your community. The children don't want to be bothered with you, but if you're taking food or you're doing something to help them, they'd be glad to see you on the street. So I think you need to get more and more out into the community. So come on over and help me out. And they have been doing it ever since. Then I found out that the sheriff said, because there's a competition between the police and the sheriff department, all of them do the same thing, but what can I say? Sheriff department came over and said, well, what can we do to help you? I'm like, okay, I need you to go to the other neighborhood, the same one the other was going to. They go to the other neighborhood and knock on the doors and make sure that senior has food. And if you can get their name and address, bring it to us, and you can take a bag of groceries to them. And they have been doing that. I think when we reach out to these communities, that these organizations within the city to get some help, we can. Like, for instance, the Boys and Girls Club, they still got children that need to work. Some of the schools are requiring kids to do civic work and outside work. See what you can do to get talk to the school to get some of the students to help deliver flyers in their neighborhood. Talk to the parents or something like that in their neighborhood. Maybe getting them to not go to the door, but drop it in their mailboxes. You know what I mean? The safety, for safety's sake. Try to use the children, try to use the schools, try to use different civic organizations that may get you some help to come over there and to distribute flyers, if that's what you need to do to get people to know what's going on. And again, just like Wanda asked, get someone from one of those blocks or maybe to come to your civic league meeting and talk to the group. Because people like to talk. They like to talk to each other. They like to be seen. They want to know who's who, what's what, who's out there. Get someone popular in the neighborhood to come and talk to your group. And they start telling other people about it. It may take you a while, but it can be done.
Thanks. Great ideas. I think everybody liked having the sheriff and the police compete with each other, who can do more in the neighborhood. And if you don't mind letting me pick on you, where do you get your information? If I remember correctly, you do welcome packets for new people moving into the neighborhood. Where do you get your information as to who's moving into the neighborhood?
Out of the newspaper on Saturdays, it's published. And I have a person that's in charge of combing that and collecting the list for every quarter. And then they hand me that list when I'm ready to publish my quarterly newsletter.
Okay.
But it's in the Saturday paper.
Thank you.
Yep.
Uh,
And I was going to say one more thing about, we had one person in our community. He was actually in the military, and he fixed up a couple of lawnmowers and bought some gas cans and gave them to a couple of kids in the summer, this past summer, and challenged them to go around and mow grass. And they did. And they all, they made some money, and the, grass got cut from people that didn't have another way to get it done. And I thought that was a really awesome outreach that this gentleman did.
That is another great story too. Thanks for both that information. The reason I ask is that it depends on the size of your neighborhood, how easy it is to get, flyers out. If you have a neighborhood of 100 houses, that's a little different than if you have a neighborhood of 1,000, 1,500 houses. That becomes a little more complex to get information out there. And I know, Sherry, that you have a pretty big area because you, I think, are a combination of, former civic leagues that combined. So that is somewhat of a challenge. But I hope some of these ideas have helped. We also, one of the things that we're looking into, compliments of both Nikki and also Charles Johnson in Park Place, is stickers with QR codes on them. I think that's something that other civic leagues are using instead of trying to blanket the whole neighborhood. Park Place, I'll eventually get it on our website, but the Park Place has come up with stickers with their QR code on it so that people can see that and look up their, their civic league website in the neighborhood. So that's another idea out there. Any other questions this evening?
I was going to mention that I know for our civic league, with getting active people, we have 4 churches and in the neighborhood. It might be worth reaching out to them for help with trying to get some more activity. I've had mixed success with it in the past. I tried to get a rotating food truck in the neighborhood during the beginning of the pandemic to give people another food option that was a little more socially distant, since some restaurants were kind of a no-go at the time. But it might be worth reaching out to the churches and see if they can help you out, or pass along your messages.
Thanks, Matt. Another good idea.
Can I just, Matt and Jim, right now, Norfolk Public Schools is working on getting the clergies more involved in the schools. I'm working on a pamphlet on how schools can go out to the different churches to get them to come into their schools to work with children. And that's something that we need to really tap into, the churches, to get back involved in their communities. Although a lot of the churches don't have, the people that go to that church don't live in that community. That's one problem that you may find, because churches don't get involved. They don't live within your community. So that's hard for them to get involved, but some of the churches do. On the south side, we have 37 churches, and I've been to every one of them to put flyers in their doors. And it's hard, but to get them involved, that's a hard task to do. But it's worthy to reach out to them.
Good stuff. On your right side of your screen, if you're using a laptop or computer, or somewhere on your phone, if you're using your phone, there should be a panel that is for polling. I've put our NBN Academy evaluation survey in there. If you don't mind filling that out, we'd appreciate it before you leave this evening. We try to collect data. Miss Anthony, I know that you're big on collecting data, so that's something that we try to do here as well, in terms of evaluating where we can improve on. If there's no further questions, I don't see any more.
Jim,
hands. Yes.
Jim, this is Abby. I don't know how to raise my hand. I'm not,
You're
but I
good.
do have a comment to make.
Sure, please do.
I wanted to tell Ann, one of the things we've tried with our Civic League as far as membership dues is to do the Cash App. A lot of people have a Cash App, and we're trying that now, where we're having the dues paid through the Cash App, so then it can be deposited in the bank. So that was one thing I wanted to add.
Which app are you using? Because we're looking into it, Addie.
The Cash App.
That's what it's called, Cash App. I
Mhm.
have a board meeting tomorrow. I'll share that because we got turned down by PayPal.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Hmm.
PayPal wouldn't let us. They charged us. So I
Oh,
would
yeah.
say, yeah, PayPal charged us. Venmo wouldn't let us because it was individual. And so I will share Cash App. Thank you so much for that.
And another, a lot of the banks use Zelle. We haven't tried that one, but I know BB&T uses Zelle, and some of the I think Chartway I uses Zelle. So that's another one. I don't know how that one works.
Well, and another little thing, we decided that you had to be a member in order to vote
Mm.
on any things that came in front of the Civic League for CUP or approving a project that came in the community. And that drove a lot of membership because they wanted to be able to vote for or against something. And
Ah.
so when we have a vote, we you check in, and that's part of it. You have to be a member of
Mm.
30 days before you
Oh,
can vote. So
okay.
And we're
I'm in,
using Cash App and we're using PayPal, and they both do. Cash App does have a service charge as well, but it's a little bit smaller than PayPal's. But what we've done in our area is just put it a blanket. If you want to pay us by cash or check, there's no extra fee. But if you want to pay by any of the electronic methods, we just tack an extra dollar on their dues or something. Like we just raise the due price just a little bit uh, across the board. Like I realize that PayPal costs more than this app or whatever, but I'm not trying to keep up with all that. I'm just, if it's electronic, we're just going to charge an extra dollar. And so far, everyone's been very amicable about that. And PayPal has been the winner. Like we've gotten a lot of our dues via PayPal.
thank you. That's an awesome feedback. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
thanks, Miss Addie. Good stuff. I'm impressed. I just learned how to use the Cash App last week for the first time. Uh, I think Miss Drennan made a good comment. Maybe a fun angle, street by street challenges like the police dance and sing offs, have the youth produce their challenge for nearby street like police, like the lip syncs. So that's it. That's a fun idea. I like that. Okay, if there's no further comments, if you don't mind doing the polling on your way out, we'd appreciate it. I want to thank you all this evening, especially our 4 panelists for giving up their evening. I've walked away with some great ideas. I've walked away with some great encouragement about what's going on in our city. The people that we have attending here this evening that I know personally are all, this is kind of preaching to the choir. We know we have the Ingleside group here. I just met with them last night, who are doing great things. Sherry is part of her food bank. Deborah Burrell works all across the city with the Arts Commission and some of the art that you see across the city. Mr. Surratt, you had some great ideas. I don't know if I've met you personally, but it's great to have you this evening. Ms. Drennan, Ms. Turner, great stuff this evening, and our panelists. I want to thank you all for what you're doing across our city. We just are really proud to know you and of what you're doing. I think that's all we have this evening. We appreciate you coming.